Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, February 17th. You are at the Kubernetes K8s Infra working group bi-weekly meeting. We all adhere to the Kubernetes code of conduct here by being our very best selves and not being jerks to each other. If you have a problem with the conduct of this meeting, please email conduct@kubernetes.io. Or you're free to reach out to me privately. I'm SpiffXP on all the things. And I think, did I mention these meetings are publicly recorded and will be posted to YouTube later, assuming our Zoom to YouTube automation isn't broken. Okay, thanks for the spiel. Is there anybody here who is new who would like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm kind of new, but I've been to this meeting before. I'm Ernest. I'm from Microsoft.
Cool.
Welcome, Ernest.
Thanks.
Good to see you again. Okay. First up is billing review. I will go ahead and pull up the billing report and share my screen for that. Well, share my browser window for that. I'm just really looking forward to the day when I do this live and there's like a huge line up and to the right and I go, oh no, I have no idea what's going on. But thus far, I would say our spend continues to be unsurprising. It continues to be very driven by weekday traffic. I can't think of anything in particular I want to point out here. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, cool. That is that. Stop sharing. Okay, AI review. So we had chatted last meeting about trying to set up some Google Cloud alerts. I think this was maybe to help Ricardo's cert manager monitoring stuff. So I opened up an issue to describe how to do that. We also have another issue describing how to do GitOps driven dashboards. You can do your configuration in YAML and then use gcloud to upload that. So anybody who wants to take that on, I think I've tagged those as help wanted and would be happy to walk folks through that. Let's see. I have an open action item to use K8s artifacts prod for release binaries. I put something on SIG releases meeting agenda to ask them there, but I couldn't show up due to a standing conflict I have with that meeting. So I never heard back from anybody about that. And I just pinged the release manager's channel. I know Dan said he's cool with this idea. I will try to get some more consensus from other release leads. But basically, yeah, I want to move a bucket called K8s release over to the same project that's hosting K8s.gcr.io so that all of the project artifact hosting costs can be billed to a single project because it's just pretty simple that way. Any questions there? Okay, moving right along. Audit job, question mark. I guess I'll ping Hippie for this one.
Looking for the mute button. I've spent a couple days on this. At first, we went through and tried to get it up and running again, but we'd had some permissions issues due to new features or new services that have been added. And I don't think the job has been run by somebody only in the audit group in a while. And I think Aaron fixed some of that. There's a PR to also add a script to ensure that that's available. So it's, I think it's in a bash script right now, but maybe we can look at something like cross-plane or other automation for later. As far as the actual dump, or the automation. This is just for the job part. I'm having some trouble with the PR creator binary doing what I think it should do, and wasn't able to find enough debug information or documentation around that particular piece of software. So I put it on pause for a bit and went over to look at the GitHub binary, the GH CLI, and I didn't see a great workflow for only create a PR if we need it, which might be just some more checks on if the branch is already created, just update the branch. But I'm still working on it. I'll put some time in on that today and tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy week for me, and will continue to be crazy, but I would really like to find time to push this over the line with you, Hippie, because we can certainly rope in like best infra on call if PR creator is still causing us issues. I'm not intimately familiar with that either.
It's a really small binary. You'd think I'd be able to figure it out. I mean, like the lines of code, it's 2 files. It's like maybe 10 functions.
Yeah. The main comment I had, which I think I sort of posted on all the PRs you've opened. So I've seen that like you sort of manually opened up a couple PRs to try and chunk up the changes that your runs of the audit script have picked up. And I've had an outstanding PR open since like January that like I assigned to Tim to get his blessing, I guess. And I poked, I think Carlos from the release engineering team to just take a look at the release engineering stuff. And he said it looked good, but Tim's never gotten to it. I think I'm tired of waiting for Tim. But basically like a lot of those changes are already kind of annotated commit by commit. I would rather see that land and then we can rebase your stuff on top, because I want to use the PRs that either you open or that are created by the audit script to start trialing the practice of, hey, let's review the PR the bot opened and have discussions about like, why is this here? Can we link to an issue that caused it or whatever? It's really hard to do that if it opens up 7 months worth of changes in a single PR. But I will work to unblock you on this.
Thanks for that. I had been running that on a regular basis when I was attending these meetings a while back, and then I had other priorities come into play. But I've since pretty much trying to reallocate myself and at least one member of my team towards this work. So you should see a lot more fruit and time out of the II folks.
Okay, that works. I guess I'm going to try and share a window so you all just don't see me talk all the time. So I think I'm sharing a window that shows the command I had to run to unblock Hippie's audit script. I had to make sure we could use secret manager stuff. That led me to ask a bunch of other sort of questions related to auditing. Basically, my experience is running the audit script takes about a little over 2 hours, which feels like a really long time. I feel like right now what the audit script does is it dumps a lot of stuff into JSON files or YAML files or flat files, depending on how we have home rolled our audit script. And it's great in that it is better than nothing, and it does seem structured in a way that I as a human can at least understand some of the patterns now. But I feel like we should consider in the context of thinking how we might want to use something other than Bash to manage our infrastructure, such as Terraform or Crossplane, or maybe Python, or maybe whatever, that we consider like, how could we have the audit script dump things in a way such that it's much easier to automatically answer the question, what changes are live that aren't in source? Or conversely, what changes are in source that aren't live right now? Because both of these can happen when humans, like myself, have the power to make changes on the fly, or PRs get approved and merged without somebody actually then manually running the scripts. And I definitely want to get us to the place where like merging the PR causes the script to actually run. I feel like I need to work a little bit more at understanding what would make us comfortable allowing that to happen. And then the other thing was like, I don't know, maybe this is a question for anybody with GCP expertise here. Like, should we be using cloud asset inventory instead of our own script? I feel like that's a Google Cloud product I have seen um, that has a bunch of how-to guides on like how to analyze all of your IAM policies, how to dump all the information into BigQuery. The product overview looks very much like if you are some kind of big enterprise and you want to get information about all of your infrastructure and then make sure it is compliant with whatever security concerns or auditing concerns you have. This is definitely the tool for that. Which feels like kind of what we want as an open source project, but nobody here has experience with this tool. I'll just move on. Okay. Okay, stop sharing meeting notes. Justin, I think you have the next action item to talk about the AWS accounts PR.
I do. It's a no up action item. It is on me. I think I am unblocked. We discussed last time that essentially we were going to get it in some way after some minor adjustments and then try to sort of pair or something on making it better. But I just have not had time to do that.
Okay. That sounds good. Let's see, I put a few other things here. I renamed the branch from master to main for the K8s.io repo last time. I don't think I've actually gone back and confirmed all of the jobs are working. So I have an open issue for that. If somebody wanted to help me out and check these, that'd be super cool. I'm dropping a comment in there. Otherwise, like I'll eventually get to it whenever I get to it. And there's some jobs to clean out. I have made no progress on what project we should be billing our data sources against. Part of this involves me poking Justin, which I haven't done. Part of this involves one of my team members getting more familiar with how to set up data sources in Data Studio for billing purposes. So I will bump an AI on that to next time because I anticipate one of us will have done more things. And then the last AI I have is I noticed the meeting uploads from the past 2 weeks had not actually happened. It appears our automation to upload from Zoom to YouTube is busted. I've been told I may have to recreate this meeting. So I'd have to send out a new calendar invite and all that stuff to maybe get the automation hooked back up. Failing that, we might just go back to a world of me having to post the videos to like a personal YouTube account and then put them on the playlist in the Kubernetes channel. But that's way less cool. I like seeing a new Kubernetes K8s Infra thing show up in my YouTube feed. Did I miss anything for action items we discussed last week? Any other follow-up we have to talk about?
I have a question about the jobs migration for the main branch, Aaron. I know that we can actually create a PR and trigger some jobs manually, right? So is this something we can do right now, like make a dump PR just to trigger like a slash test blah and see if everything is going on okay, if everything is working?
That I think that part's been done already. Like generally, I flip the branch and then I go either merge a PR myself or I just wait until somebody merges a PR. And that'll right away sort of tell me if the pre-submits are working and if the post-submits are working. It's more the periodics, which at the time I checked, not all of them had run yet. And then I kind of forgot about it. So you just need to click through on a couple test grid links and like, yeah, they're green. It's all good. Sort of more generally, I could find an issue. There's an issue somewhere, maybe I can find it, about we could preemptively change most of our pre-submits and post-submits today to just trigger both on master and main, so that there's no additional changes needed for flipping your branch. The the periodics are a bit tougher, either depending on whether you use Bootstrap to clone your repo or pod utils. Both of those need changes to avoid requiring you explicitly put the branch you want to check out. Because most often, if you're running a periodic job, you probably want whatever the default branch is for the repo, not a specific branch, unless you're doing like release branches. I can post links to those issues and a couple more that would help out with renaming stuff in general. And I think we talked about this at last week's SIG testing meeting, if I have the recording for that posted. Okay. I'm just totally going to punt on the first item on the agenda. I don't even know why I put it there. It was a question about should we set up a budget and alerts. I'm not going to, we'll talk about that later. Okay, Ricardo, please regale us with.
Yeah, I was going to ask if Daniel wants to jump before me because he needs to drop from the meeting, right? So Daniel, if you want to say something about cross-planning, then I can.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I can actually go to the end of the meeting, so you can go ahead and we'll stick with the current agenda.
Okay, great.
Would you like to go now?
I can stay on to the end, so Ricardo can go ahead and go since he was on there first.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna take probably 5 to 10 minutes. I've posted to you folks the slides of this. If you want, I can share this. But this is pretty fast about the job that has been done with the monitoring the Kubernetes Infra certs. Do you want me to share my screen, Aaron, or just that's
sure. I can happily give you co-host access if you want to do that.
Otherwise, you can follow me in the slides. That's not a problem.
Oh, I'd much rather you click on stuff. Okay, you are co-host. You have the ability to share your screen.
Okay, so yeah, so here we go. So this is the problem that we got was like certs can expire and we don't monitor them. It was from, I think, 2 or 3 meetings ago. So the idea was, how can we use Cert Manager metrics to alert if some certificate is going to expire and we don't renew them? Mostly this is not only because of like, let's encrypt things, but also we might have some self-signed authority inside Cert Manager or something that was generated in a future, like using not let's encrypt, and how can we monitor that? So the idea was to keep it simple. So this is the first problem. The metrics that are exported by Cert Manager, I don't think actually this is like a problem, but was like they are expressed as Unix epochs time. So I'm not getting like how much time we have until the certificates they expire, but I'm getting what the Unix epochs time that the certificates they are getting to expire. So it's pretty hard to turn that into alerts in Google Cloud or in Prometheus and so on. So we need to transform the timestamp to something alertable, right? Like we have X days or X seconds before this certificate is going to get expired. So we need to alert that and see if this is like an important certificate or if this is something that we can like disregard and probably revoke the certificate. So the first attempt, it was a Prometheus plus GCP sidecar plus stack driver, because this is what's recommended by Google Cloud into how you can export your metrics from Kubernetes to stack driver. So the idea that they use there is that you have a Prometheus running inside your namespace that can scrape the Cert Manager. It writes the metrics to write-ahead log And a sidecar from GCP, it can read the write-ahead logs and write to stack driver. So this was the steps that were followed, installing the Prometheus server, and we don't have to allocate volumes or anything else, because as this is mostly shared. If this is an empty dir or something like that, the sidecar can read and then write into stack driver. And if you lose this spot, the metrics, they are already written into stack driver. So the pros of this was that not much effort, just install and run, and we can use Prometheus record rule to change the cert expiration value from Unix timestamp to remaining seconds. So we can tell Prometheus to make the calcs of the expiration timestamp minus the time now, and say how much seconds or how much days we have, and then write that to stack driver. And the cons was that this needs admin privileges per GCP docs. So this first attempt that I failed, and if someone with some more expertise at GCP that can help me, I think this is the best approach, because the sidecar, it can read the metrics from WAL. I can see it reading the metrics from WAL, but it cannot write into stack driver. So I don't know if this is like a old container or some problem with stack driver or something like that. So the second attempt was GK a matrix agent that is based in OpenTelemetry collector. So I saw that you have like an OpenTelemetry collector in all the Google Cloud cluster that can scrape Prometheus from the cluster and then write it into stack driver. So that's nice, because Google uses actually the OpenTelemetry, but it's some slightly modified version to only to contemplate the stack driver and the Prometheus scraper. And this is really easy to implement, but you need to use OpenTelemetry collector contrib with other third-party things or GKA metrics agent. And none of them, they support the Prometheus recording rules, because this is how Prometheus server writes into the server, and not the way it can convert the metrics and expose them to stack driver. So it worked, but couldn't convert the timestamp, so it's not alertable for us. So this was a question: if stack driver supports metrics conversion, if inside stack driver we can convert this into like missing how many remaining seconds we have. So the third attempt was a scraper, like developing something. I did this with the help of Lucas from Container Solution, that can scrape the Kubernetes objects and write into a stack driver or Amazon, CloudWatch, or Prometheus, or anything else, using the same idea of the OpenTelemetry collector, but with the modifications that we wanted. So it's based on open census, OpenTelemetry. And this was something like hard to do, but only needs permission to get certificate objects and not the secrets, and permissions to send the metrics to stack driver, and can be combined with scenario 2 if we desire, and also export into multiple exporters. But the cons is that this needs to be implemented. That I am a dev wannabe, so I made a lot of crappy things in my code, and then Lucas corrected a lot of them. But it's yeah, I'm not a dev at all. So it works fine. So I could make like those metrics. This is like the missing seconds until the certificate expire, and the namespace and the owner that I've put into a label, and the certificate name. And I could export this directly to Slack without any sort of problem, other than this is a ClickOps, this is not a GitOps. So you have to sign in your bot or your GCP cloud into your Slack. You cannot do this automatically. So this was like the certificate, and I have like this alerting: if this is below 5 days, then alert me. And I got those alerts into Slack, and this worked. So what I am showing you here is that we need an approach decision now. If we can use the OpenTelemetry approach, which is better to maintain because it's a community thing, but we need to verify how to turn the metrics into alerts on stack driver, because the Unix epoch time is not alertable. If we can use a developed scraper, and need to check how to improve this. And I will need some help from you folks, because this is like, this needs a roadmap. We can check also if the secrets, the public certs and the dates of those public certs instead of the cert manager certificate object. And about the GCP sidecar, in my opinion, this is the best approach. But as this didn't work, I don't know if I'm missing something, or if we can have some help from folks with more expertise into GCP and Google Cloud and this stack driver approach to make this happen. Because this is only a deploy and with some config map. And once you do that, you are already sending your metrics to GCP. So, and this is an AI for this, like once we decide the approach, establish the timeline and implement, need to automate the generation of stack driver alerts. And this is the same issue that you've posted there. And so I think it's I can try to take a look into that, how to implement that into GitOps and define what should be alerted on this gray period. So if we should alert also if no metrics were received in an amount of time, or what's the certificate, or what's the metric that we want to monitor from the certificate, like this is going to expire in less than X seconds or less than X days. So this is how that was done. And so now we need to see the next steps. I guess I could follow the 5 minutes, right?
Ricardo, that was awesome. Thank you for, yeah, seriously, like, thank you very much for clearly laying out the options and talking about the pros and cons and all that stuff. I don't know. I've been talking a lot. Does anybody else have any thoughts about next steps or comments?
Just want to tell that GK matrix agent is already deployed in the GK cluster. So we can basically use some specific annotation on the services to basically push the metrics to stack driver and define the alerts with Terraform.
I didn't try that, but I can try that. Yeah.
Because most of the resources on GCP are already present in the Terraform provider. So you can basically say we can collect the metric in stack driver and define an alert with Terraform directly.
Yeah. The problem with that is that what we scrape from the cert manager is not in the way we need, right? Like in the value we need, because we need that in how many seconds remaining we have for those certificates. So my problem with the GKA metrics agent is how can I convert that into something alertable? It's the only problem. Otherwise, I guess it's a.
Okay.
Thank you.
Justin, what does voting code mean?
Yes. So to me, I mean,
It's
to me, the
voluntary.
reason why I'm super excited about this working group K8s Infra is because we're actually trying to use Kubernetes, to dog food Kubernetes and find out where gaps are. And so when we find things that are not easy, but maybe should be easy, like how do I alert when an object is not in my expected state? I think we should be solving those problems in the Kubernetes project and not like adding in dependencies on my employer's proprietary services. And so like we can certainly have like things like stack driver or PagerDuty or whatever it is as like syncs, as options, as it were. But I think, writing our own code that puts it into our own control to alert on these things, and like encouraging people to plug in their own systems into it. Like if someone wants an email alert, that's great. That to me is, why I'm excited about this group.
So you would be voting for the sort of developed scraper approach?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. I come from the perspective of too many things. I have very little bandwidth, and so I would be interested in what's the least amount of code that I have to maintain. But I also kind of share Justin's perspective of like, I'm not here to shill for my employer. So not necessarily like, I think there's an alpha feature you could enroll in to automatically have your Prometheus metrics scraped without even having to worry about managing the agent. But I'd rather we use something that's I mean, if that works, that would be great. I think that's like workload identity works very well for us for protecting us securely. But since it's alpha, I don't know. So having said that, like I'm mildly curious about getting the GCP sidecar thing to work, only because that would allow us to kind of fit the model, the existing model of like, well, I understand Prometheus. I can kind of pick that up and put that wherever I want. It's mainly about making sure that we've got a sync from Prometheus to Stackdriver. Yeah, with that sidecar. Having said that, I don't know that I can promise you time today. I might be able to give some time to like help troubleshoot or stuff, or maybe Justin or I could kick up another Googler who's more familiar with the instrumentation side of GKE to help out. Like I kind of vote for that in terms of least amount of code that you have to maintain and staff, and we have to staff for. But I kind of agree with Justin that like alerting when an object is not at the desired state is a pretty good general problem, and that would be a great gap to write some code to solve. So developing your own scraper sounds cool too. I come from the perspective of, are you sure you will have time to maintain that? But I think that would be great and awesome. I don't mean to sound like the killjoy to Justin's like, go forth and be awesome, because yeah.
We can always try both, right? We can always, oh, and someone else. We can try all of the above and see which one sort of works best. Like having two watchdogs is not a terrible idea.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, I've just tried to put everything here to say, okay, we need to take a decision, but I like the idea of coding something also. I just can't say that my code is pretty beautiful to be something official. So, but I will try to at least put some unit tests, Justin.
You've seen the code in our repo? Like, I don't think
Yeah, that's a lot of bash, right?
Yeah.
We can gather around the bash file and warm ourselves.
I'm not sure beauty is our barrier to entry. Yeah, that sounds great. Do you feel like you have enough to proceed? My big thing is like, I don't want to impose a timeline on you. I'm more interested in you sort of guessing at the timeline that you can support, or that if we could find another contributor could help you support. And I can try to find some time in parallel to like noodle with you on the Stackdriver sidecar to see if we have like a no code solution kind of up a little bit sooner.
Sounds good. Sounds great. Yeah, I guess we can try to see this Stackdriver sidecar. It's a good approach as a short path, because I think we still have to solve this problem, right? And we need a short path for that. And I can keep developing this and see how this can be improved. I also think that one good addition to the community maybe would be, and I can ping probably folks from OpenTelemetry, is having those recording rules from Prometheus in working in OpenTelemetry theme, like being able to evaluate them and expose them as they were persistent into Prometheus, and this solves the just in problems that we can have everything pluggable, because OpenTelemetry is mostly pluggable, and also we are going to return to the community something because of our needs, but it wasn't easy. I tried at first, and then I figured out that the rules engine is not related to how the metrics are exposed. But I think the short path, having this stack driver thing working, it would be great as a first approach. Oh, and I forgot to put that, but we need to every time being watching the costs, because every custom metrics in GCP, they have extra costs. So this is
Sure, that can be broken out to an SKU. I kind of want to cut us off there in the interest of time. Sorry, I got really excited.
Sorry for taking so much time, folks.
It's all good. Ernest, let's chat real briefly about donating the Azure subscription.
Yeah, so I was just wondering what the next step is. So if for everyone who doesn't know, so right now Azure, we run some pre-submit jobs and post-submit jobs on Azure infrastructures, and the way we do it is that we mount a secret file to prow clusters, and the prow job will read the secrets from that file. And the bad thing is that when we try to rotate secrets within the file, we have to send the secret file in plain text to the current test infra on call, which is not ideal. So I was just, so I opened this issue on case.io to ask about how we can donate our Azure subscription, and kind of want to make Azure maybe like first class citizens in terms of testing Kubernetes. So
Sure.
so yeah, just wondering what the next step would be. I thought Dims would be in this call, but I guess he's not here.
Yeah, he has a standing conflict with this meeting, and I could probably use some input from Dims as a steering committee member. But I feel like if this is about donating the Azure subscription to the CNCF, getting Chris A involved is probably the first step to understand, and Ihor as well, to understand what the CNCF's requirements are. In the context of this working group, we want to make sure that we are using funds that the CNCF has appropriated or approved for use by the Kubernetes project. So we know for a fact that all the funds that are used to pay for the GCP account that we're using are definitely for Kubernetes and Kubernetes only. It's kind of less clear to me what that looks like for Azure and AWS. Like, I know we live in a world today where both Azure and AWS have donated like subscriptions or accounts. As you said, they're like hooked up via secrets or whatever. But I don't know that we exactly, it's not clear to me how many people right here, right now, can like log into those accounts and troubleshoot whatever is going on. So it's kind of about like opening up access to the community. It's also not clear to me how much money is being spent on those accounts. Like the public report that we go look at is the spending costs for GCP. Ideally, we'd have either something similar for each of the different cloud providers that we're using, or we have them all feed into one central report. That's sort of the high level thing. I think like getting a conversation kicked off, poke Dims again, and I can try and chat with Dims offline, and we can figure out how to get it moving on a more official stance. To talk to your specific problem about having to rotate secrets, I would really like to get us in a mode where we use Google Secret Manager. We can use IAM policies to give you the ability to update the contents of the secret in Secret Manager. So you're not sending things over plain text, you're storing them in a very secure location. And Secret Manager has the concept of versions of secrets as well. So you could either ping test infra on call to like get it from there, or maybe we could even ideally set up something that syncs the secrets from secret manager into Kubernetes secrets. And so then rotation of secrets just looks like you put a new value in the secret manager thing, and it automatically rotates in the cluster.
Makes sense. So is there any, where can I get it set up? So I just have to contact the on-call.
Can you open up an issue about secret manager, secret rotation with secret manager? Can you open it up in K8s.io? We'll see if we can go from there. Because basically right now, your jobs are, all of the jobs that use Azure and stuff are running in the google.com owned ProwBuild cluster. And so like Google is still paying money to run those jobs. Azure is paying money to stand up the cluster that's exercised as part of those jobs. So this would be about, in order to make this process work, we'd be talking about getting your jobs to run not in the google.com cluster, but in the Kubernetes.io community-owned cluster, and then getting all the Azure secrets over from that cluster to the community cluster, where I don't have it documented. I need an issue to work against for like using secret manager for all this stuff. Also, I see Justin had your hand up forever.
Yeah. One thing that might make you either more or less comfortable is like, I think once the secret goes into Kubernetes, the on-calls have access to it anyway, effectively. And I think the more likely problem is going to be that a job accidentally logs that secret. That actually happens not irregularly. If Azure supports it, one of the things I've been trying or working towards on AWS is supporting OIDC or whatever that's called. So in other words, so there would be no explicit secret, but rather you would use the effectively workload identity in the Kubernetes cluster to authenticate to Azure. I don't know if that's an option on Azure.
I don't think it's an option right now. Yeah, right now we just use a simple username and password and Azure subscription ID to authenticate the job to create a cluster on Azure. So yeah, I would like to get rid of like this process of rotating secret in plain text. But yeah, for now I'll open an issue on K8s.io and we can start from there.
Okay, that'll work. Yeah, and the security boundary Justin described is very real. Yeah, there are other things we can do to improve that situation for sure, but we can't necessarily at static time. Yeah, we can't necessarily introspect a bash script and know that it's going to try and list all secrets in the namespace or whatever. Okay, do you feel like we've answered your questions, Ernest?
Yeah, I think there are definitely some follow-ups. Yeah, I think I know where to start.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I think like solving the pain of secret rotation is probably the smaller thing that we can act on more quickly, and we can get the higher level conversation of, hey, how do we make sure that Azure resources are available for K8s Infra is the bigger conversation. Hippie, you had a hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if I could connect Ernest and Priyanka. I know that this one is focused on the K8s Infra, and I know that there's stuff like for the entirety of the CNCF, another donation program that they're working on. I just wanted to offer to connect Ernest to that if that's appropriate.
Yeah. Possibly. I don't know if like Ihor and Chris are better people to reach out to first, or if Priyanka will redirect to the appropriate people. I have no objections.
Thanks. Ernest, if you're on the CNCF Slack, I can connect you to probably the three of them together if that'll work for you.
Is it the Kubernetes Slack, or is there
probably there's a Slack for the CNCF, or I don't want to make it more complicated at all.
Yeah, maybe an email intro.
Yeah, email intro. Ernest, if you'll send me your contact details via Slack, that'd be great.
Okay, we have 6 minutes left. Claudio, all I really want to say is like, I know you've got this 401 image pushing job problem. I haven't had any time to actually troubleshoot it. I will get to it as soon as I'm able to. Is there anything we can give you that would help you troubleshoot this yourself?
No, just wanted to say that the pro job was properly defined, even using that script that generates the job itself, and that something happened between this month's 11th and 15th, because the last image building job that ran and worked was on the 11th.
Okay. Do you
And
have an issue for this?
I'm not sure.
Okay, if you can go check and like assign it to me, including the very helpful information you just said, like when it last worked and when it started failing, and we can go from there.
Yeah, should I open it on test infra?
Sure. Yeah, let's start there.
Okay, good.
Okay, Daniel, you had your hand up, and also I want to give the rest of the time to you.
Cool. So I know we only have a couple minutes here. I will say while we were going through a number of the other things, I was kind of like sitting on my hands because I kept being like, "Oh, we could fix this." But I am 100% here to shill for my open source project that I work on. But it is open source. It's part of the CNCF. It's built on Kubernetes. So I know that some of y'all have seen the conversation around using Crossplane. There is going to be a demo and kind of a presentation later today where we can go a little bit more in depth. But I wanted to give folks who aren't able to make that just real quickly a brief look at what kind of maybe some of the problems we could address with this are. So Aaron, if I could share my screen just real quick.
Yes, sorry, I should have done that immediately.
No worries.
You are a co-host. Now, go for it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So like I said, there is going to be a demo this afternoon and a presentation where we'll go through all the different components of it, but just kind of speaking to some of the things that we talked about today. Crossplane allows you to manage infrastructure via the Kubernetes API. That works exactly how you would think that would, right? We have CRDs that you create in the cluster that represent all of the different external API types. We provide those CRDs via providers. So you're going to see a lot of parallels to something like Terraform, right? Of being able to plug in different cloud functionality or kind of different of any API functionality. The benefit of using Crossplane is obviously that you get that constant reconciliation. So one of the things I've heard expressed today is, we'd like to know when our objects are not in a good state, right? When our infrastructure is not in a good state. So you'd install Crossplane typically into kind of like a management cluster that may in turn spin up other infrastructure, including other Kubernetes clusters. And then you have your CRDs or your Kubernetes objects that represent that external infrastructure existing in the management cluster. From there, you can do with the kind of core Crossplane components that lives, independent of the different providers that you're plugging in. You can do what's called composition. So this sounds a little bit like Terraform modules. Basically, you can combine different resources from different providers. The one I specifically wanted to mention in relation to some of the things we've talked about today is we have providers for different cloud providers, of course, which is the typical use case. They have varying levels of support. We typically add new resources as folks request them. And then we also try to have a steady increase as well. We're also working with the various cloud providers to have them support them as well. We have a kind of a large community that adds these different providers. So here's GCP, for example, but something you may be kind of like less familiar with from a management perspective is something like provider Helm. So this is kind of the galaxy brain future we could have for some of this infrastructure, I guess you could say. So we have resources like a Helm release, and being able to compose these into higher level abstractions means you can do something, which this is an example of doing it on AWS, but where you design an abstraction like let's just say a cluster, and it's backed by different cloud providers or different combinations of resources. So in this case, we're doing things like creating a cluster abstraction that creates an EKS cluster, which behind the scenes has all these different types of resources in here that are required for spinning up an EKS cluster. And then we're also putting in there, we're dropping, well, once the cluster is ready, we're dropping like Prometheus into the cluster, but we're doing this all as like creation of a single object. And this is a sprint through all this functionality. I promise we'll cover it more later. But essentially you can get kind of that similar abstraction workflow. And I want to see if there's an example potentially here, or I'll hop over to the docs, of basically having a single, in this case, it's a Postgres database type, which is kind of simple, but where it's backed by different cloud providers. So you can say, maybe we have a Prow cluster abstraction, and that's backed by GCP GKE cluster, or maybe that's backed by, you know, an Azure AKS cluster or something like that. The interface you get, though, from a creation perspective, is the exact same. And you can provision that, and that could, you know, put other things like Prometheus in there, or in this case, spin up a cluster and install Prow into it. So that could solve some of the different multi-cloud situations. But anyway, that's kind of the sprint overview. Maybe that'll give you a little bit of motivation. I hope folks are able to make it later today, but also happy to chat with folks offline as well about some of the functionality here.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm looking forward to the demo later today. So I'll hold my comments till then, but thank you for that. Anything from anybody else? Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you all for your time today. And I am super excited to see Daniel and some of you later today to see the cross-plane demo. So happy Wednesday. Take care.
Folks.
Thanks, Aaron.